Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Odyssey Recaps Below the Surface Edition. Just a reminder that if you'd like a shorter, shallower, and slightly sassier recap, head on over to my Just the Tea recaps. But for now, let's dive in. Today we are capping book or chapter 3, titled by Emily Wilson as An Old King Remembers. We open on Telemachus successfully arriving in Pylos, where the Pylians are sacrificing black bulls on the beach to honor Poseidon. Poseidon, you'll remember, is the god of the sea and earthquakes, who is one of the major obstacles keeping Odysseus from home to punish him for blinding Poseidon's Cyclops son, Polyphemus. Athena, still in the form of mentor, takes Telemachus aside and gives him a little pep talk, telling him he has sailed across the sea to find news of his father, and he shouldn't be shy now. She tells him to find King Nestor and ask about Odysseus, saying that Nestor will not lie. Now, Nestor is an important figure in Greek mythology, and if you'd like me to do a deeper dive into who he is and where he fits into the mythology, just let me know in the comments. Telemachus tells the disguised Athena that he isn't good at making speeches, and he feels awkward speaking to his elders because he is so young and inexperienced. Athena tells him to trust his wits and reminds him that he has divine assistance and has made it this far, and she leads him to Nestor. Nestor and his sons welcome Telemachus and the disguised Athena and invite them to join in honoring the gods, particularly Athena and Poseidon. Athena is impressed with their good manners and piety and joins them in prayer to Poseidon. Then they feast. After they had all eaten their fill, Nestor asks why they have come to Pylos and if they're pirates, which I guess it's always good to check on that. I'm going to read this next section to you because it's pretty great. Telemachus was thoughtful, but not shy. Athena gave him the confidence deep in his heart to ask about his absent father and to gain a noble reputation for himself. I think this shows how well Athena's plan is working. Telemachus is already more sure of himself and his place in the world, something that he will need if he is to take on the suitors. He will also need allies, and Nestor would be a powerful one. This is an excellent example of Athena's strategic thinking and how she's earned her reputation as a master tactician. Telemachus asks if Nestor has any word of his father, if he saw him die at Troy, or has any information about what has become of him. Nestor tells him about the Trojan War. He says they lost many good men, including Ajax, Achilles, Patroclus, and his own son, Antilochus, who all died at Troy. He says, more pain, more grief, our sufferings increased. Who could recount so many, many losses? If you stayed here 5 years and kept on asking how many things the fighters suffered there, you would get bored and go back home again before the story ended. He said that they had tried to bring the Trojans down for 9 long years, and that it was due to the will of Zeus and the cunning of Odysseus that they finally succeeded. Then Nestor talked about what happened next, how some of the Greeks had angered the gods, saying, since some of us had neither sense nor morals, they dishonored the gods with improper sacrifices and impiety. He said that the Greeks argued about how best to remedy the situation, with some choosing to flee and try to outrun the wrath of the gods, and some chose to stay and perform more sacrifices in the hopes of appeasing them and making up for the improper ones. Odysseus had started to travel, but had turned back, saying he would return and redo the sacrifices properly before leaving again. Nestor says that's the last time he saw or heard of Odysseus, and he does not know what happened to him after they parted ways on the sea. Telemachus tells Nestor that he wishes he had the power of the gods granted the warriors Nestor talked about, so that he could fight the suitors himself, once again linking the siege of Troy to the siege of the suitors at Ithaca. Nestor tells Telemachus that he has heard of the suitors and how horribly they're treating him in his home, and asks why he hasn't kicked them out yet, and says that perhaps his father will come home to take revenge, maybe with an army. Nestor says Athena particularly favors Odysseus, and that she may favor Telemachus too as Odysseus' son. Telemachus is not comforted by this and says that he is not so hopeful, but the disguised Athena cuts in and says that the gods can save anyone, and getting home late is better than not getting home at all, but that even the gods cannot stop fate and cruel death, which isn't super reassuring, but I think she's trying to remind him that they have no proof that Odysseus is dead, and so they still have hope. Telemachus is not convinced and tells Athena he has no real chance now of getting home. The gods have fenced him round with death and darkness. And he says he wants to ask Nestor to tell them how King Agamemnon died and where his brother King Menelaus is. Nestor tells the tale of Aegisthus, Orestes, and Menelaus. And if you'd like me to go into more detail about this and how it fits into the House of Atreus mythology, just let me know in the comments. It's wild. But what I think Nestor is trying to convey here is that Telemachus has the power to revenge his father's honor and defend his home, and that the gods do not look kindly on those who try to steal the honor of others, like the suitors are doing on Ithaca. He tells Telemachus, "The moral is you must not stay away too long, dear boy. When those proud suitors lurk inside your house, they may divide your wealth amongst themselves and make your journey useless. But I suggest you go to Menelaus." And goes on to tell him that Menelaus was also delayed by the gods and wandered further than anyone thought possible, but he still returned home safely. He tells Telemachus that he will help him get to Menelaus, and his sons will guide him there. Then they finish the sacrifices, and Nestor invites them to stay as his guests. The disguised Athena says that it's right that Telemachus stay, but that she must go back to the ship to keep the men's spirits up and tell them what they've learned. Then she turns into an ossifrage, which is like a type of bearded vulture, in front of them and just flies away, leaving them all astonished. Nestor tells Telemachus that this must be Athena, and he must be a hero to be blessed by the gods at such a young age. He prays that Athena blesses him and his household too, and says that he will perform more sacrifices just for her. They all go to sleep, and the next morning Nestor calls the rest of Telemachus's men, leaving 2 to guard the ship, and they begin the sacrificial feast for Athena. This next section describes in great detail how they perform the sacrifice, and it's definitely worth reading if you're interested in sacrifices. And there's another book that I highly recommend called The Cuisine of Sacrifice Amongst the Greeks, which is just fantastic. I'd also like to point out that aside from being an important literary text, this level of detail into custom, religion, and daily life of the ancient Greeks is one of the reasons why the Odyssey is an important historical artifact. Although please keep in mind that this is still fictional, it was put together by many different people over centuries and depicts an idealized view of Greek life in the Age of Heroes, a time that never actually existed. But it's still a very useful document for historians, as well as being a foundational text of Western literature. When the feast is over, Nestor calls for swift carriages and sends his son Pisistratus to escort Telemachus to Menelaus' kingdom. They set off, leaving Athena to guard his men and the ship. Now I'm just going to read the last little bit here because it's just such a fantastic way to end the chapter. It reads, "At a light touch of the whip, the horses flew. Swiftly they drew toward their journey's end, on through the fields of wheat, until the sun began to set and shadows filled the streets." Isn't that great? Okay, well, I'll see you guys next time for Chapter 4, What the Sea God Said. See you there.